In this video, we're going to cover how we can use loc with slice notation. So we just saw how we can use a list with loc and a single label with loc. Now we're going to see how to use it with slice notation. So a quick review of slice notation. There are three components: start, stop, and step. Each one is separated by a colon. Also, each one is optional, and we'll see the different combinations below. So one thing to know about slice notation with loc is that it is inclusive of the stop label. This is not how slice notation works with lists. This is different. So you'll see that it does include the stop label, and you can slice both rows and columns. So here's some example slices, and we'll do a few of these. So you can slice and you can provide the label, and you must provide the label since loc is label based. So here, this slices from the label Nico up to and including Christina, and with a step size of 2. So this one actually has all three components: start, stop, and step. Now, like I said, all three are optional. The next one goes from Nico through Christina, has no step size. If there is no step size, then the step size is 1. The step size always has to be an integer. This one is Nico, begins at Nico, there's no stop, and then has a step size of 2. This means it goes from Nico all the way to the end, stepping by 2. This one has no step size, it's just Nico as the start, that's all you get. So it goes from Nico all the way to the end, stepping by 1. This one has no start, which means the beginning is actually at the very first. So it starts from the beginning, goes up to Christina, and steps by 2. You can have an empty slice, so this is actually a legal command, and this will just return all of the rows or the columns. So it goes from the start to the beginning with a step size of 1. All right, so let's go ahead and look at our data once again, and let's do some slice notation with loc. So let's slice from Nico. Let's go ahead and do this to Christina. So that'll be the row selection, and then the column selection, we can also use slice notation here. We can go from color to height and just grab every single one. So there we go. We go from Nico to Christina. Notice that it is inclusive of the last one. And here we go from color to height. So we can do different arrangements of this one. Let's see a few more. Now, instead of slice notation for one of the selectors, we can use something else. So we can say, all right, we just want color and score, and we can pass that in as a list. So we have slice notation for the rows and a list for the columns, and that works as well. We can just stay here. We can add the step size. We can change the step size to 2. So it goes from Nico to Christina, stepping by 2. We can get rid of the end. We can say go from Nico all the way to the end, step by 2. That doesn't change it because Christina is close to the end and there's no other one after that. But we can say step by 3. That will certainly change things. We can have a slice where we go from the beginning to the end, stepping by 3. So there's no start, there's no stop, which means it goes from the beginning to the end, like that. We can go from the beginning to a particular label, so from the beginning to Dean, like that. And again, all of these slices work with columns as well. I've just showed you most of the time with rows. Okay, so we just did that. We sliced both the rows and the columns. Now let's see an example where we select all of the rows and just some of the columns. So you can do this. You could say, all right, I'll have an empty slice, which just means go from the beginning to the end, stepping by 1. That's just grab all of them. And then we can slice some of the columns. So we can start from the beginning and go to, let's just say, age, like that. So that is possible. And so that, yeah, that certainly works. Now we can keep on moving. Let's see another example. We can use a single column or a single colon to select all of the columns. So this is how you select all of the rows with slice notation. So you just want to slice the columns but not the rows. Now we can do the same thing with the columns. Let's go from Nico to Dean like this, and then slice all of the columns like this. So the row selection is that slice. The column selection is just the empty slice. So that'll get us all of them. Now, Pandas allows for a shortcut. You don't have to provide the column selection with Loc. So sometimes you'll see this, and that'll do the exact same thing. It'll just always select all of the columns. You do always have to provide the row selection, so that comes first, so there's no going around that. You have to provide the row selection. So there's no shortcut here. We just have to do that. But for the column selection, if you're selecting all of the columns but only a subset of the rows, then you don't have to provide the columns because it comes last. Now, I kind of like using this notation when starting out, even though it is unnecessary, because it just reinforces the fact that Loc simultaneously selects rows and columns. So here's the row selection, here's the column selection. All right, so we've already changed the step size. We already saw how to do that. And that pretty much wraps up all of the examples that I have using slice notation.